You're listening to another episode of the Coaster101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stilwell, and it is a family affair this week on the Coaster101 podcast, as my younger brother and I recently returned from a trip to Universal Orlando. We're going to talk about that trip and a little bit of what else we got into down in Orlando during our trip at the 1st of February. But without further ado, I'm going to bring him in. I'd say longtime listener, but we've established that he doesn't listen to the podcast because he doesn't love me. JT, my brother, what's going on, bud? How are you?
That's not necessarily true. I've listened to a couple of episodes here and there, none that I can remember. However, I appreciate you having me on, and I have been a longtime supporter of Coaster101. I have a couple T-shirts that I got for free. It's nice to know a guy in the business.
This is true.
No, I'm doing great.
Good. I'm glad.
Finally recovered from doing a theme park trip with a theme park guy, which sometimes is like running a marathon. So,
well, we did do about 70,000 steps at our 3 days at Universal Orlando, and this trip for us, I mean, JT, it was a Christmas gift that we kind of agreed to give each other, but it had been several years in the making because it had been about 10 years since you had been to Universal Orlando.
I think it was close. Yeah, I mean it's something like 10 or 11. I remember the last time we were at Universal, they were doing soft test runs and soft openings for Transformers. So there was a lot that needed to get done, and a lot of new things to explore. So it was, it's probably been 4 years in the making with COVID and everything. So finally got down there. So, we made it, aside from my health, we made it by the grace of God. So we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you and I, we did have our kind of the last big theme park trip we took was actually Super Bowl week of 2020, and we all know what happened after the about 5 weeks after that is the world ended. So hopefully we can get through and not do a global pandemic this go around.
Well, I tell you what, Chiefs fans better hope that we continue to go to amusement parks because it seems like they win the Super Bowl every time we end up going to one. So we kind of have a trend going.
Yes. So, we'll plan a big theme park trip in a couple of years. So if any Chiefs fans happen to be listening and want to Venmo us money to take that trip sooner, let us know. But the trip started, JT, you were dealing with, some kidney stone issues. And we've got an article on Coaster101, times a roller coaster saved a life. And there's a story that kind of circulates on the internet every so often when, BuzzFeed or whoever decides to pick it up. That's talks about this woman's ride on Big Thunder Mountain and how it lodged or dislodged a kidney stone she had, and she was able to pass it because of that roller coaster ride. I guess my first question is, what was it like, kind of dealing with a kidney stone at a theme park?
I wish I had the same luck. I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's still there. I still feel it on a regular basis. Not to mention, we're also forgetting the fact that the morning we were supposed to leave, I ended up getting food poisoning. So trip was off to a rocky start from the get-go.
This is true.
And but no, it's interesting being at a theme park and essentially having a rock just being shook around all day. I mean, I probably drank close to 250 ounces of water. I apologize to any doctors that are listening right now that are upset with me for drowning myself. But yeah, I mean, going to a theme park with a kidney stone is definitely an experience. For those of you who have had kidney stones, you know that it's unpredictable when you're gonna have a spasm or something like that. So um, this trip was brought to you by water. Drink it.
There we go. Shout out to Water for the sponsored content.
Shout out to water. No specific brand, just water.
There we go. Florida's finest tap water that comes out
And
of a water fountain.
and not the Splash Mountain water that's sold on eBay for a bunch of money.
Yeah, let's not even get into that. We're we're past that, I think. But we've let's I want to talk Universal, because the first attraction that we did during our visit, we stayed at Sapphire Falls, which we'll touch on here in a little bit. But it was a long awaited trip, and I just was working hard to ensure that I fit on Velocicoaster. I was tired of everybody going to Orlando, posting pictures of Velocicoaster, realizing that, this thing has been open for a year and a half or longer at this point, and I've yet to ride it. So the coaster being built, through a pandemic, it just universally loved by a lot of people. The anticipation that I had built in my head for this ride was absurd. And I'm really happy to say that it lived up to every single bit of my expectations, which is a good thing. But JT, when as we were kind of approaching Velocicoaster, what was going through your head?
Well, first and foremost, I mean, I want to give a quick shout out to you because I know how hard you worked on it. Um, I know how hard you worked to get into that, mindset and physical shape to not get walked off a ride. I've been with you before, and I'm really, really glad that you ended. That was essentially what was going through my head was, please God, let him fit on this ride, or else this trip is ruined. Um, Honestly, didn't know really what to expect. One of the big things with Universal with me, and I've told you this before, is obviously you know this stuff like the back of your hand. You know engineering properties, you know companies, you know what type of roller coaster is what things are called. Whereas my experience with roller coasters and theme parks has always been an appreciation for the theming that goes along with rides. So the effort put in, that's why I like Disney and Universal so much, is because they put a lot of effort into outside of the ride itself. So even though you're waiting in long lines, there's always stuff to look at. You feel like you're immersed in an experience. So I really just was, obviously I was excited for the ride. I was very curious to see kind of how much theming and how much effort they would put into Velocicoaster as a whole. I had a couple friends who had ridden it, said it was really fun. Because up until you know the last time we went to Universal, Universal was never really known as a roller coaster park. I mean, it was more of a experience park. So for them to actually bank on putting in a roller coaster with numerous launches and not your typical lift hill, big drop type of thing, it was interesting to see how they were going to pull that off. And I would 100% agree that they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, and we were talking a little bit that, unlike me, like, I will refuse to watch YouTube videos for years. Like, I've stayed as spoiler free on Velocicoaster as possible, just, despite the efforts of my fellow Coaster101 team members who have to write an article every time that they ride something. And, John, who runs the site, wrote a love letter to Velocicoaster on our site, which proved out to be very true. So shout out to that. Go check that out. But I remained as spoiler free as possible. And I think you told me before got down to Orlando, this was one that you had actually also kind of remained spoiler free on. Like, you did not watch the POV or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I did it on purpose. I didn't do it on purpose. In terms of, like, it's not that I was avoiding it. It's just one that I didn't see any type of footage on. I didn't watch any type of film on it, or get the feel for what it was like. And it wasn't that I was trying to ruin the experience. It was just a matter of I just never got around to it. The spoiler thing doesn't bother me as much. We'll get into the other attractions that I hadn't done. But yeah, this was one that I was going in blind on. Didn't really know what to expect, and yeah, I mean, it was overall very, very enjoyable. Very, very good theming on the ride, I'd say. Um, for it being in an old location that didn't host an attraction before, it was really kind of like the Discovery Center, Dinosaur
Yeah,
Discovery Center. That was really kind of a. It's more or less like a. It was more or less like a rest stop almost, that they turned into kind of an attraction. So it was really enjoyable, to see all of their efforts paying off, and buying into everything that I guess they set out to do. So
yeah. And I mean, we rode the first time in the back row, and after all the YouTube videos of watching people of size kind of get through and pull the restraint down, get the green light, I was prepared, I was ready, and I got in there, pulled the restraint down, it locked immediately. I didn't even need the massive, like, oh, we need you to fit push, which was really, it was a good thing for me. And then obviously rode it, and we got off there, and I've got a little bit of audio that I think I've got from our first ride. I'm going to try and plug this in the podcast, that we'll just we'll do a real quick report. It was a kind of a live trip report of sorts that was like, hey, I want to record this. And this was our goal for this podcast originally, was just kind of do a bunch of hits where we were like just talking about our day. And then that never really happened.
yeah, we
But
were tired.
that's true. We had 3 straight days of, or 2 days at Universal, definitely, that were 8 a.m. till past midnight. So, but that first ride on Velocicoaster was definitely something special. We got right back in line, and the right after that, after taking some pictures, because that's what I do, um, we went to another attraction that I had ridden actually back in 2019. I was down in Orlando for IAPA, and this roller coaster had just opened earlier that year. And JT, you had not ridden it, but we went over to Hogwarts during the early park entry before the day guests got in, and we got in line for Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventures. And JT, we were talking a little bit like during our trip, but also kind of before we started recording. As someone who's not the world's biggest coaster guy, obviously you love roller coasters, you enjoy riding them. There's nothing you won't ride. You actually enjoyed the experience on Hagrid's better than Velocicoaster.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to Velocicoaster, doing that back row, I think the first time, um, you know, if you agree with me, say so. But the back row on Velocicoaster is brutal. Not in a bad way, but I've ridden in a lot of back rows because you've always told me and explained to me, like, riding in the back row is always more fun because you're being pulled over hills and things along that nature. When you're riding on Velocicoaster and you're going over that, the was it 90
Top
degree?
top hat.
Yeah. When you're going over that and you get pulled in the back row, I mean, it kind of takes your breath a little bit. So, definitely, I would say the experience on the Hagrid coaster, obviously, because it's, I would first of its kind, yes.
It
With
was it's got the most multi, like, it's the longest multi launch coaster. I don't know if it was the first of its kind, but
no,
of course it's
in terms of like the train that they have on the roller coaster itself.
yeah, kinda.
Yeah, like so the couple things that I'll say about Hagrid's is, um I get why, but I feel like the queue was a little bit long. I feel like there's a lot of room, that kind of gets wasted in a certain aspect. However, the actual experience of the ride itself was extremely, extremely different in the best way possible. There was, it was one of those that I did watch on YouTube prior. I had seen it. However, I had forgotten a lot of aspects about it. Um, I knew about the kind of the first cinematic scene with the Hagrid animatronic and the God, I'm not gonna make the
The
Harry Potter purist mad,
the
but the
blast
scorpion
ended
looking thing.
Scroot. Blast ended Scroot.
That thing. Yeah, yeah. The scorpion that farts on you. The Yeah, so I had remembered that. However, didn't remember having to go backwards. Didn't remember. Um, Also, spoiler alert for those of you who are listening who also like to remain spoiler free. Um, the part where you go backwards, then you're in Devil's Snare, and then the Verbolten type drop was just a type of shock factor. And then the multi launch and everything, it was just such an enjoyable experience. Overall, I like Harry Potter a lot. I'm not a Potter fanatic. I don't need to do the wand shop whenever I go there. I love watching the movies whenever they're on television. Um, I love, as you know, I love doing Harry Potter impressions and
Yeah,
um,
can we get a Voldemort impression for those listening?
oh, you want the Voldemort impression? You don't want the Harry Potter impression?
I want the let me get the Voldemort impression and we'll do the Harry Potter one later.
Harry Potter. I'm holding a highlighter, by the way. The boy who lived come to die. I can never get through that without laughing. But no, overall, I thought the Hagrid's ride was very much worth the wait, and one of the ones that it was probably the top one that I wanted to do over and over and over again. Like the re-rideability on it was um, very, very like enjoyable. I would say.
Yeah. And I mean, we jumped in line, pretty early in the day. The sign said 150 minutes. We ended up waiting about an hour, maybe a little bit more in that first Friday morning ride. But the wait time, like throughout the weekend, was rarely below 2 hours. So I think we hit it right at a good time, which was good. I had ridden this. We did both need to be in the
Yeah, it was the first time I got walked off a roller coaster. I was like,
yeah,
"What's up
we
with that?"
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm used to it, whatever. But it was one of those, we both have legs of a larger size, and we needed to be,
We're
we
tatted
needed,
up. We're TAT, man. We tatted up. TAT,
oh,
thick ass thighs.
all right. Well, this is a family podcast, but thank you. Anyway, so we both needed the motorcycle seat, and so it was a really quick process. They popped the restraint, they explained to us what needed to be done, and yeah, so we got back and we did it. So unfortunately, we never got to ride together on this one, and I think we did it 3 times throughout the weekend. But I think your first ride happened to be in the front row of the motorbike.
It was the
One of them, you got a front row because I was in the back row of the.
right, right. Yeah, it was the first time we rode it. I was in the front row.
It's not a bad way to start. I feel like
No, definitely not. Especially
so.
going up that, especially going up that hill where all you see is just no track and you're looking at the sky. It's just unreal.
Yeah, I agree, and it's definitely a fun one. All the single riders we had to ride with, after that point, they were like, oh, they were all hyped. We were all hyped. It was a really good, um,
Oh, we
such a
lucked out. We lucked out on the single riders. I mean, they were all extremely enjoyable people.
that, and they were cool riding in the sidecar. So that's yeah, that's all good.
They
Physics
didn't
are
really. They didn't really have a choice.
that's also true. We waited in line. They waited in a shorter line. We can dictate where they sit. Um, The other attraction, though, we backtracked a little bit. So we started it at Velocicoaster, went over to Hogsmeade. We then jumped off of Hagrid's and we went right to Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, which you had done before and I had done before, and it had been years at this point. Um, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or the fact that I am just getting older and can't handle these things anymore, but I got off that and my head and my stomach were spinning.
The two things about that is no, it's not because you're getting older, because I had the same type of motion sickness that I had 10 years ago when I did it the first time. Secondly, when we open the park, and historically, whenever we do theme parks and we rope drop, we don't eat. We are really bad theme park eaters. So I think it was the fact that we both were on empty stomachs. We both didn't get a lot of sleep the night before. Obviously, you had a late flight, and due to my food poisoning and kidney stones, I chose to drive at the last minute. So I had a long drive, and we didn't get a lot of sleep. So, but yeah, that ride is Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey is definitely one that not necessarily needs to be redone. It's a one timer. You're in the park, you do it one time, but yeah, I felt the same way. Very, very queasy, I should say, after that one.
Yes. So it was good. And I think this might be the last Harry Potter thing we get really into detail on. So can we get a really quick Harry Potter impression?
He's back. Voldemort's back. Cedric. He told me to bring his body back. I couldn't leave him. Not there. That's all you're getting.
All right, cool. This is good. Yeah, I
The
it's
Harry Potter purists are going to absolutely slaughter me in the comments, but it's fine.
it's gonna be fine. I don't think a ton of them actually listen to our podcast, so that you're good.
Well, they're going
Um,
to now.
also, hey, did you
Welcome,
hear this guy on this podcast made fun of Harry Potter? Oh
welcome
no.
to the internet, Coaster101.
Yeah. And then, we kind of backtracked a little bit and we made it over to the other Islands of Adventure attraction that you had not yet done. And as we walked through the queue, you asked where the New York City streetcars were. But we did Skull Island Reign of Kong. And I want to hear your thoughts because you presented a really good argument as we're kind of leaving this attraction, and kind of the atmosphere that's what's going around in kind of the tunnel area with the screens. But what are your thoughts on this ride and how it works for people with attention deficit disorder?
So, first things first, shout out to Universal for putting my ex girlfriend in the queue. They did a really good job with that. Just kidding. Just kidding. Anyway, the so obviously you had told me that there were two different experiences on this ride based on weather. And so I believe when we started, normally there's like an outdoor area that kind of takes you through a lot of scenery and stuff like that. But then you get into the ride and it starts like most rides at Universal. There's a screen on one side, and I'm going to relate everything along those lines to like Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a very long-standing attraction where it's very screen based. Um, with Kong, obviously I was a massive fan of Confrontation when I was a kid. I loved all of the scenery. It made you feel like everything was real. It made you feel like you were actually in these types of things. Obviously, there's not a giant gorilla attacking the car. Like, it's a robot. However, like there was a sense of realism when you're not looking at something through a screen. So the again, spoiler alert for anybody who's waiting to ride Confrontation. Not Confrontation. What is it? Reign of Kong.
Skull
Um,
Island Reign of Kong. Yep.
yeah. So there's once the ride progresses, you're now in a kind of like an Animal Kingdom safari bus type vehicle, where you're going through this ride, and it's trackless, I believe.
Yep.
And so there's a part in the ride where it's double screens on both sides of the vehicle. However, it's not like the same thing as going on for one side of the ride compared to the other side of the ride. It's like two things are happening on both sides of you. And I feel like that takes a lot of enjoyment out of rides like that, because for people who have you know issues focusing, and they really want to get immersed in a certain ride along these lines, such as ET, where it's mostly animatronics, and you have the chance to you're going at a certain speed where you get to see things before you actually get to them. Doing these dual screen rides is really, really difficult, because you're having to like whip your head around and you're having to pay attention to both sides of the ride, and there's things that you may miss, which I guess in Universal, like for Universal, that could be a good thing, because it causes people to re-ride the attraction to try to catch what they missed. Obviously, I appreciated the callback to Confrontation at the very end with the giant Kong animatronic. I thought that was very interesting. However, the ride didn't resonate with me all that well, just because it was hard to pay attention to. I thought it was very detailed in terms of the launch queue, in terms of the wait line. I thought they put a lot of detail into that, and then it almost felt like they spent all the budget on the queue and the setup, and then the actual ride itself just kind of went by the wayside.
There's another ride that we might touch on here in a little bit that I think does the same thing.
Oh, we're going to. We're going to touch on that ride as well.
All right, cool. So we went from Kong. We did Spider Man. Spider Man is great. It's in the last couple of years, at least since you had ridden it, the screens have been upgraded, so that's always a good thing. That 4K projection, really really clean. All the Stan Lee cameos, so that was really good.
Nostalgia.
Yes. So love Spider Man. And on the subject of nostalgia, it was raining. We were like, well, we've got a park to park ticket. Why don't we just walk over to the Hogwarts Express, because you had never done that, and take it from the Hogsmeade station to the King's Cross, Diagon Alley, other Universal Studios Florida. So we walked through there, and we went to Seuss, walked through Seuss Landing. Cat in the Hat has a 5-minute wait. You can't pass up a 5-minute wait on Cat in the Hat. And in our vehicle, it was the two of us. I'm 33, JT, you're what, 28? And then behind us, there were two other guys, probably the same age. So Universal definitely hit their target demo of families for the Cat in the Hat ride of, 4 larger humans.
It was probably the most uncomfortable car that ride has ever seen.
It was putting a lot of strain on the shock absorbers.
It was 4 dudes who just didn't want to be in the rain. That's what it was.
Also true. But again, a classic. Love Cat in the Hat. And we got on the Hogwarts Express. And I had done this before, because I had visited the park in 2017, 2018, after Diagon Alley had opened. But JT, what were your kind of quick thoughts on the Hogwarts Express? I know we ended up taking it. We eventually got to take it both ways during our trip. But what were your thoughts?
I thought you were about to ask me what my thoughts on Cat in the Hat were. The Hogwarts Express was super cool. Obviously, trains in theme parks go all over the place. I mean, there are train rides at Disney, there are train rides at Carowinds, there are train rides literally almost at every theme park that you go to, and it's really a nice chance to just sit back and relax and kind of catch your breath from the day and things like that. I like that Universal took this concept, this transportation concept, and actually made an experience out of that. I remember thinking it was really funny that they brought in the Harry Potter actors to do like maybe 5 seconds of filming that required like 5 or 6 hours of makeup. Um, I'll always find enjoyment in that. Um, but it wasn't just so much looking out the window. I thought even though I was critical of the fact that it wasn't Emma Watson, uh, that the stuff going on kind of in the train hallways as well, I thought that was a super cool touch. And the fact that, and we'll go back to this in the future, the fact that when it goes in different directions, it's a different experience. Um, and I thought that was super cool. I thought that was a super nice, um, like the from the stations to getting on the trains to seeing the smoke come off the train like they did in the movie. I thought everything was really, really accurate, and I thought everything was really, really well done for the
Cool.
Hogwarts.
Yeah. I loved it. It is a fun ride. There is an article on Coaster 101 that I believe Nick wrote that kind of talks about how it's not actually a train. It's a funicular. There's a track switch. There's a lot of really cool stuff. So go check that out as well. But we had made our way at this point to Universal Studios Florida, and we believe our first stop was lunch. And we went over to against our better judgment, maybe the Simpsons Fast Food Boulevard. Waited in a pretty long line for some fried chicken. I had the waffle sandwich, the chicken and waffle sandwich, actually pretty good. Um, I don't really have much else to say on top of that. I think JT, you had what? Some chicken fingers and a Caesar salad.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
just your
Waited a while for some chicken tendies and some Caesar salad. Then I
well.
waited again for a drink. So we really wish they would fix that part, but
Yeah, it's an interesting play. They want you to buy the combo, but then you have to wait in a second line for the drink. So I don't necessarily get that. But then I got to see something I had never seen before at Universal Studios Florida, which was the Bourne Stuntacular show. And I went into this without seeing any Bourne movie. I couldn't tell you if it was Matt Damon or Ben Affleck that played Jason Bourne, but
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Shout out
Um,
Team America World Police.
so we saw the show. Not again. I had heard really good things, but I was truly blown away at this show. Like there were moments where you couldn't tell what was real, what was fake. The integration of set and screen and live actor and actors on screens. I thought this show was incredibly well done. JT, what'd you think?
Easily the second most enjoyable theme park show I've ever seen. And we'll get into the first one.
Okay, fair.
Yeah, just everything about it, and I'm the same way. I haven't seen any of the Bourne movies. I need to. I want to. But I caught myself trying to, like you said, decipher what was real and what wasn't. Like who was actual actors and who was on screen and who was on stage and how the stage moved. And I mean, yeah. I mean, I thought from a choreography standpoint, hats off to Universal for that. And hats off to the actors in that show. And yeah, just everything about that show was. I thought the premise was just a tiny bit hokey. The fact that like we're in this ability to see Jason Bourne's movements and we have to track him down and we have to arrest him and stuff like that. I mean, that overall was fine for what it was. But the actual execution of the show, I thought, was in terms of live action shows at Universal Studios, such as the Fear Factor live show, such as the Wild Wild West stunt show, such as Terminator. Yeah, the Bourne show is definitely top of those lists, 100%.
Yeah, and it is hilarious to me to kind of see the dichotomy a little bit of the screens in that park and kind of how far Universal has come in the past 2 decades, because you've got, like, if you go through the Mummy queue line or ET, for example, you can tell those videos were, shot and formatted on like a 4:3 screen, and then you have like this enormous, like 8K, 16K, whatever the resolution is of that giant screen in that theater. And the fact that those exist literally across a lake from one another, or basically back to back in the case of ET and Bourne, um, it's crazy how far that park has come and how far technology's come in that same time frame. Um, and then we kind of bounced from Bourne. We went right from Bourne to what I'm assuming is your favorite theme park show you've ever seen.
My
The
most, I wouldn't say favorite. It's definitely my most enjoyable. Like, it's the same script and it's the same. Like, I think that guy's been doing the show for the longest time.
Yes,
However, there's just the perfect amount of improv in it that makes the horror movie makeup show just the most enjoyable comedy show that I've ever seen in a theme park. And people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. However, I enjoy that show every single time we go watch it. I mean, I
yeah,
remember when we went 10 years ago, I think we watched that show 3 times in one day, and it was enjoyable each time.
absolutely. And the actors. We ended up seeing this again the second day on Saturday, and the actors flipped roles. So if you really want some inside baseball here, um, the host of the show is Alex, which again is a name that can be a male or female name, and depending on the gender of the special effects artist, it's either Mark James or Marty James. Again, it's just a fun way that you can kind of insert actors. And again, shout out to I don't know the gentleman's name, but the woman on Twitter who was in the show. Her handle is at Robin's Rantics with a Y, and she's hilarious. She is,
Yeah.
again, has been doing this show forever, but she kills it. They got some moments that were a little bilingual because of the audience, so they were just having a little fun. But I love the horror makeup show so much.
Yeah.
I
And I, it's another one of those things where I love that Universal puts effort into giving you something to look at while you wait. Like, seeing and it's updated too, which I think is the best. Like, all of the new effects from the Mummy were in there. The updated makeup from the Halloween Horror Nights was in there. Velociraptor from Jurassic World was in there. Like, it's a different experience every time you go in, even though the choreography of the show is the exact same. And credit to the woman in that show, you know, with as talented as she is, she should be like headlining comedy clubs all over the country. She just loves doing it so much that she's still, knocking it out of the park in this show, doing it 6 times a day, and
Yeah,
just makes it great every time she does it. And I mean, that's very impressive.
yeah. Yeah. And from there we left the park a little bit. We went out, and we're going to touch a little bit on the Orlando Informer meetup that we participated in both nights. Spoiler alert, loved it. Amazing. Fantastic opportunity. Got our tickets for that. Came back in the park. We did Men in Black, Alien Attack. We split the we're going to talk just real quick. We've interviewed Dave Cobb, the creative director, on this podcast. Love Dave, love everything he did with that ride. I will say in round one, I was a little rusty. I hadn't been on the ride in 6 or 7 years. JT beat me. It required a red button Hail Mary. We both got the red button. He beat me by about 60,000 points. We got back in line. The results flipped. And it was one of those, like, I think we ended up, we did it 4 times during our visit. I think I was 3-1 on the trip. So we're okay. I the best of 5 series. It was We didn't even need a game 5, but
But
I
you would call it 2-1 with an, or 3-1 with an asterisk, because my gun didn't work the third time we wrote it, and I ended up with like 35,000 points.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, my gun wasn't much better that one, but I did still beat you. Not that we're keeping score, but 3-1.
You just
Anyway,
had to throw that in there, didn't you?
100%, 100%. Um, and then we went from Men in Black to the last new attraction that had been built during your last visit that you got to experience for the first time.
Jaws.
Transformer. No, not Jaws. Sorry. This is not Captain Jake's Amity Boat Tours. It is not the best. It's not the only scenic cruise on the island anymore. But we're talking about Transformers, and to me, and it's the same ride system as Spider Man. To me, as someone who has never seen a Transformers film, shame on me. I don't watch a lot of movies. It's Spider Man on steroids. And again, the screens have been upgraded so much better than Spider Man was originally. But JT, you're a big Transformers guy. You've seen a lot of the movies, if not all
Oh
of
yeah,
them.
oh yeah. I love Transformers. Not only was this Spider-Man on steroids, but it was Spider-Man on a lot of caffeine as well. Um, I mean, it was an extremely fast-paced Spider-Man. I think 20 seconds in, one of the Decepticons gets torn in half by a commuter train, like out of nowhere, and it's just you don't see that type of stuff coming. But he kept that energy the whole ride, the entire ride. And yeah, I very much enjoyed Transformers.
Yeah, I think it is. It's one of those. I feel like if I had seen the movies, I would enjoy it. I appreciate the ride experience, and I appreciate the action going around me. I have no idea who Bumblebee is, what Optimus Prime is, who the bad guy is, Megatron, right? Whatever.
Megatron.
So yeah, I would have enjoyed that a lot better if I had gotten my cup of coffee and watched the movies. Um,
Oh, a mummy reference on Transformers.
yes, and
Ugh.
speaking of Mummy, they just recently redid it. The effects are a lot clearer now than they were last time JT was at the park, and definitely last time I was at the park. Um, but still, the same great fun ride, fake ending. There's not a lot that hasn't already been said about the Mummy, but I will always, always, always enjoy that ride.
Also, want to take a quick. Speaking of the Mummy, since we haven't touched on it so far, and this goes park to park, both parks. Shout out to Universal for their locker system. I mean, that is spectacular. It's
Yes.
quick, it's easy, it's super user friendly. Like you don't have to hunt down the button; it just opens for it. Like shout out to Universal for their locker system. I mean, that is just brilliant.
And the fact that unless you have a giant water bottle to try and dislodge a kidney stone, that you probably could have fit everything we were carrying in the free lockers.
Yeah,
Instead,
absolutely.
we would have had to. We paid $2 per ride, which is fine. Again, it's such an easy process, and yeah, shout out to them. We did we did Green Gots, and I forgot to mention that was another first time for you. I've done it a couple of times now, but what were your thoughts on Green Gots compared to something like Mummy or something like Hagrids, for example?
So I made this point, and I think you remember that I made this point. And here's kind of where I take a different approach to Universal Studios. Obviously, growing up, going as a kid, um, you know, you grow to love that theme park because of the immersion that you're in. I do think that Universal has taken the screen idea, and I think they've gone a little crazy with it. I think a lot of things are more motion simulators than actual rides and experiences themselves. Um, and so I think that hurts a little bit. Like I didn't really find it was fine. I mean, Green Gots was fine. The story was fine. I think overall it I felt cheated by it a little bit just because everything was a screen. Like the movement was cool. The fact that it was like a dark ride roller coaster combo. Like if you're asking me to pick between Green Gots and the Mummy, I'm picking the Mummy 10 times out of 10. just because it's way more of an experience and it's way more of a, like, back to what I said about Kong. It's just like you feel like you have to pay attention to literally everything. Like you may miss something or you may overlook something and you miss the story itself and you miss the immersion that you have when you're on a ride like this. With Forbidden Journey, the Harry Potter Forbidden Journey ride. They still have the animatronics such as the dragon and the spiders and
The Whomping Willow.
yeah, and the Whomping Willow and stuff that makes you feel like you're actually in an experience as opposed to just it's like I described to you at dinner one night and I just waved my phone in your face and I was just like, look, we're on a ride. These are the that type of thing. So that's where I get a little critical of kind of the direction that Universal is heading. Obviously, it's technology advancement and it's all this other stuff, but you know, I think rides like Gringotts appeal to a younger generation that didn't get to know Universal before it, started revamping everything.
Yeah. And I will say, just to defend the immersion a little bit, we did go through the single rider queue just in the interest of time at Gringotts, and I know the main queue does go through the bank. You see the trolls, you go down the elevator, you do all this cool stuff that we kind of skipped just because we didn't want to wait as long. So maybe that would have helped you a little bit. I don't know. We'll have to go back.
I mean, just the ride itself, it's I probably would have appreciated it maybe a little bit more, but I don't like a ride because of the queue. I like the ride because of the on-ride experience. And I'm not a screens guy, I would say. I think that would be the best way to describe me.
All right. Well, the good news is we've got two more attractions we're going to kind of touch on that were new to you attractions that from that first day, both screen-based experiences. And I would argue that these are some of Universal's kind of misses. To just to put it lightly, I think the first one we rode was Fast and Furious.
Trash.
Okay. Here is to me the saving grace. There is a little bit of a silver lining here with Fast and the Furious. The ride experience, as you said, JT, you ride rides for the ride experience, not what goes on in the queue. Ride experience, not my favorite ride I've ever been on. That's just I'm putting it lightly.
I'm not trash.
Okay, well that's
bad.
fair.
It was bad.
But
I was really hopeful that the internet wasn't right and that they were being way too harsh on this ride. It was trash.
Well, the two actors in the pre-show, I think they have kind of realized that the internet has these thoughts, and so they just try to make chicken salad out of chicken stuff. And I thought the two actors in the pre-show, as they're talking to Ludacris and we're talking to, was it Vin Diesel and The Rock? Are they still fighting? Are those guys fighting? Whatever.
I don't know. WrestleMania is coming up.
Yeah.
Who knows? They may be on that card. I don't know at this point.
Yeah, but I thought the actors in the pre-show were hilarious because they were just deadpanning the response to everything. And it's like, we're leaving the first pre-show room and the guy was like, oh, wow, did you see how he was talking to me? That was really ludicrous. And I thought as someone who appreciates a dumb pun, Fast and the Furious had won me over by that point. And then I got on the party bus, and you think a ride Fast and Furious, those are traits that you can see, a drift coaster, really cool launch coaster, car theme, whatever.
Instead, a wild mouse coaster. To be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, we're gonna go party with Vin Diesel and The Rock and the actress who plays Vin Diesel's sister, whose name I don't know. And it's just, to me, it was not a winner. I applaud the creative direction. I think it's probably a net push on what used to be there, which was Earthquake and then Disaster. But the fact that we killed Christopher Walken as the director of disaster pictures. I can't for the life of me. Frank Kincaid was the character Christopher Walken played in Disaster, major motion picture starring you. The fact that we killed off Frank Kincaid for Family is Forever is a little blasphemous in my opinion.
You
Um,
didn't have fake rocks thrown at you when you were a child for nothing. You didn't
it's,
have that happen for this.
it's true. I didn't. We were, we always enjoyed being voluntold that we were going to participate in Earthquake. We would raise hands and things like that. It was fun.
Yeah, that's when
Um,
we found out you were a bad actor. But anyway,
Again, that's why I'm on a podcast, JT. I know you don't listen, but it's it's
hey,
it's like this. It's like this all the time.
don't you throw
Um,
me under Vin Diesel's party bus?
I won't. So we're but I will throw you under Jimmy Fallon's uh whatever he is riding, his hover tricycle that he rides. Okay, we got to talk about this ride, and to me,
Trash,
it's not great. I will.
trash, so
So
bad.
it's the best part of the ride is the safety spiel that the Roots sing that you don't even get to see all of because they kind of put you in the room late. And the Q experience that's got the really cool like NBC Tonight Show Hall of Fame, and you get to all these artifacts. And JT, like you were talking about with the horror makeup show, you get to kind of observe. But as you're just walking in, you're being pulsed right into the line. You miss half the safety spiel. You sit in your flying theater seat. Um, it
They
there
had
was
his
I
suit. They had Jimmy Fallon's suit. You know,
Yeah,
you know where else you can see Jimmy Fallon's suit? Every night on the Tonight Show.
yeah, it's true. It's a good point.
I mean,
Yeah, there are exercises in brand synergy. That it's like ESPN and Disney wanted to do the NBA experience at Disney Springs, and through COVID and a bunch of reasons, it didn't really work. Or let's see, something else that is I can't even think of a another like brand synergy thing in a theme park that is like Jimmy Fallon, but this is definitely a Comcast play that to me I was never the biggest Twister fan in the world, but I would experience Twister and Bill Paxton saying "Run for your life,"
I would
and
rather get hit by the paper mache cow than do Jimmy Fallon again.
that's true. It was not great, but
Like,
again,
imagine if Disney tried to do the Scott Van Pelt experience. Nobody would want to do that.
first of all, Scott Van Pelt of Sports Center, legend. If I will always love that guy. Even though I don't really like where he went to college, he went to University of Maryland. As a UNC fan, not the biggest Maryland guy. Scott Van Pelt, I will not. You take his name out of your mouth, or it would be better than Jimmy
Nope,
Fallon.
you wouldn't. You wouldn't want him to have that. I know
No,
you would.
absolutely, it would be better than Jimmy Fallon.
All
Anyway,
right. Move
so
on.
So that was, I mean, that kind of covers the new rides that we got to experience. We visited the park on Saturday as well. It was a lot more crowded. It was the first day of Mardi Gras. This was all things we did on Friday with no express pass. We were just flying from attraction to attraction, and we did take part in the Orlando Informer meetup. And to me, I was very impressed with this event as a whole, and I think we could do a whole podcast topic. I know some of the other guys are going in June for the next one. Um, but for those who don't know what this is, Orlando Informer is a company. They do kind of Orlando planning tips on their website, but they also host these events, periodically throughout the year called the Orlando Informer Meetup at Universal Orlando, and you get basically if you picture an after hours event at Disney, it's a separate ticketed event. Um, about as much as what you would pay for a park to park during the day, but you get it for 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours. But most of the rides are open. I think all of the rides are open to an extent. Not all the shows are open, so we couldn't do Bourne, couldn't do Horror Makeup Show, things like that. Um, but on top of that, all the restaurants are open for the most part, and all the food is free. So for me, we have both done the Magic Kingdom After Hours event where we're paying about the same amount of money. All the rides are open. So we're, apples to apples on rides here, but the food you get versus the snacks you get at Disney of like bottled soda, popcorn, and Mickey bars doesn't really compare to you could walk up to literally any restaurant in the park and say, I want a cheeseburger if they have cheeseburgers on the menu, or I want a slice of pizza, or I want some chicken fingers. And they would just give it to you. And they would run a tab all night. So we're talking for the Harry Potter fans who want to crucify JT early for his earlier impressions, unlimited butterbeer, frozen, hot, cold, whatever your fancy was for butterbeer, you could do it. Unlimited ice cream, all this other stuff. I cannot recommend the Orlando Informer meetup enough. They did not pay me to say this. We paid for our tickets, but if you were going to experience Universal and only had a limited time to do it, if you were in town for a conference or something that happened to be going on at the same time as the Orlando Informer meetup, I would absolutely pay the money, go get your tickets. It gets you in at 5:00. So you go from 5:00 and it was open until 1:30. And we didn't make it to 1:30 either night. And we still felt like we got our money's worth for, limited lines because it is a limited ticket event. Um, we waited both nights for Hagrids, but it was less than half the time we would wait during the day at the park. And I believe we basically walked on Velocicoaster twice. And then the second night, we walked on basically three times. We waited a little bit longer the second night for, a front row ride to kind of close out the Velocicoaster experience. But JT, what did you think of this? This Orlando Informer meetup. Obviously, this was the part of the trip that you just kind of let me plan and be like, okay, I trust your judgment, whatever you think. But do you think that we got our time and money's worth there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, without question, there was a lot of stuff that we didn't do during the day just because we had the cushion to do it at night.
Right.
And frankly, some of those ride experiences like vastly improve at night. And I think it's kind of a rare thing that you get to do is kind of do Hagrids at night, try to do Velocicoaster at night. Obviously we didn't do the Hulk while we were down there, but I think that would have been a cool experience to do at night. We didn't make it to Rocket. I guess the wind was too strong when we were there, so that kept going down. But yeah, overall, you brought up the Disney portion. I think having the food venues, and I mean it was the majority of the food venues, have like a specially catered menu, I would say, where you just kind of grab and go and do that type of stuff. I think we only had like one bad theme park meal while we were doing this. And it's fine. I mean, there was nothing open in Toon Lagoon, so there was not a lot of foot traffic through Toon Lagoon. So we ended up getting.
But when Wimpy's is open, you have to have the opportunity to get Wimpy's because it's rarely open.
Right. It's just a matter of when you're eating it at 11 p.m. when there's nobody around them. I think they put a little bit less TLC in their food, but it's fine. We didn't pay for it, so. I mean, we paid for the ticket. We didn't pay for the food, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So, like, you can afford bad food when you're not paying for it. You take a couple bites, you say, "Yeah, that is what it is." The fries were good, so.
We just probably caught a bad time for the Wellington cheeseburger.
I'm not worried about it whatsoever. I was very impressed with the amount of options that we had.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, for them to do their flagship drink for free, I mean, the butterbeer for free was super clutch.
Yeah, and I mean,
granted, it was in like 8-ounce Dixie cups, but still, I mean, you could have as much as you wanted. So it was more than worth the money. Shout out to Orlando Informer for hosting the event, and is definitely something that I would do again.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I know several of our team are going to be down there in June. I don't know if the difference between a summer meetup and like a winter meetup, I don't know. But for a first couple of first timers at the Orlando Informer meetup. I think we definitely enjoyed ourselves. And at some point, I can't say when for sure because travel is prohibitively expensive at times when you're trying to plan a wedding. We will be back for sure, like absolutely, wholeheartedly. Um, then let's touch on a couple more things we did Saturday that we didn't get to on Friday. We rode the Simpsons ride. GTA, did you, I swear we had ridden that, but you have
It
no
was my first time.
recollection.
My first time ever
Okay,
riding the Simpsons ride. When we went the last time we were there, we were in the line and the ride broke down, and I did not get to ride it.
got it.
Which never really upset me that much. I was never a Back to the Future fan. Didn't really like it that much. Um, and I mean, Simpsons was fine. I've never been a Simpsons fan. I never watched the show. It's not that I don't like the Simpsons. It's just something that I never got into. So I didn't really get the story. I didn't really get the characters and all that stuff. So Simpsons was fine what it is. I think it may be a little overplayed in that park. But it is what it is. I could see how
So
it could be enjoyable for people.
yeah, and it's owned by the company down the street now. So maybe we could see it on its last legs sooner rather than later.
Are we getting
With
a
no offense,
retheme? Are we getting a retheme?
maybe,
Are we getting a How to Train Your Dragon retheme?
maybe I don't know. Have you been reading the blogs? I haven't been reading the blogs.
I've been watching the
So,
TikToks. Apparently, Rock and Roller Coaster is turning into a BTS coaster.
but they're gonna light it up like dynamite.
That's not BTS, but anyway, go on.
Oh, wait, yeah,
Nope,
it is.
nope. Just keep going.
Huh. Anyway, and then we did my first time and your first time, and I believe it will be the last time. Right after we rode Simpsons, we rode the Kang and Kodos Twirl and Hurl, Hurl and Twirl, whatever it's called, the Dumbo Spinner, the Simpsons themed Dumbo Spinner. And we talk about load bearing and putting the shock absorbers to good use on Cat in the Hat. We tried to put this thing up all the way, and we somehow were lower than every other car on the thing. So I'm wondering if we broke the pneumatics on it.
Yeah. So for those of you not listening, or for now listening, not knowing what this ride is, it's a ride where you can, propel yourself up and down the use of a lever. Uh, our cart said, "Nah, y'all are too big. We ain't going all the way up." So the point of the ride is to go up and down and up and down. It was Ours was more along the lines of, "I can't do it," and yeah, it's humbling. I'm not gonna lie, it's a humbling experience.
Yeah. So, and again, Saturday, very crowded day at the park. We rode Men in Black. Again, we rode the Mummy again. We rode. Did we do Transformers again? I don't think we did.
No, we only did Transformers once.
So, but we knew we had the Orlando Informer event that night. So, it was a very casual park day. And that was the benefit of kind of a 2 day ticket plus the 2 day Orlando Informer ticket. And again, for people who don't get down to Orlando with any level of regularity, I think it was money well spent on those tickets to be able to do Hogwarts Express during the day and go park to park and all these cool things. So I thoroughly enjoyed the trip, and JT, I hope you did the same because otherwise, what's the point of planning this trip if you didn't enjoy yourself? You know what I mean?
No, I definitely enjoyed myself. Apart from my kidney stone, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's all good. Real quick, I want to hear your top three rides across Universal Orlando, and you can go to a top five if you want to. But I also want to hear your bottom three. So start. You're going to do top three or top five.
I'll do top three. I'll
All right.
do I'll do top three, bottom three.
All right. Start with your third favorite. Go up to number one. And then actually, we're going to do this in reverse. We're going to start with your bottom three. So your third least favorite going to your what you view to be the worst attraction you experienced.
Third least favorite was Fast and the Furious. Third least favorite was definitely Fast and the Furious. It just is what it is. You know,
Okay.
we moved a little bit. Uh,
It was like
but
slow and jolly.
yeah, you moved around. You got to see different things, which is
Okay.
why second least favorite is Jimmy Fallon because you sit in the same spot the entire time. It's a bad ride. It's a very poor experience. Just overall bad.
Okay.
And
Least
then
favorite.
first least favorite is Icebreaker at SeaWorld because my phone fell out of my pocket and then it turned into the Great Phone Rescue. So,
That's a. We were going to get to that here in a second. This was Universal only. So, do you
nope,
need to re?
nope, nope. It's across the entire Orlando area. We'll get to that story in a minute, but it's my least favorite ride of all time.
All right. Go ahead with your third favorite attraction at Universal then.
Third favorite attraction, and arguably the best queue on a ride I've ever seen, Transformers.
Okay.
Without
Interesting.
question.
All right.
Some of the most detailed, experience filled waiting in line I've ever done. Seeing the movie props and the Allspark piece and having the alarms go off and having like actually feeling like you're in a military base was super cool. Second favorite, obviously, Velocicoaster. Velocicoaster is I love. I think my favorite type of roller coaster is definitely a launch coaster. So obviously, I'm a big fan of all the roller coasters at Universal Studios. Considering I made the comment to you that none of them have traditional lift hills, other than probably Flight of the Hippogriff. So, and obviously, we didn't do that because it had a hour and a half wait the entire time we were there, which
Yes.
made zero sense. No, I thought Velocicoaster was extremely well done. It was extremely um, it was intense in terms of the airtime that you get on that roller coaster. I haven't really experienced anything like that before. Also, the Mosasaurus roll, is that what we call
Yes.
it? Shout out
Yes.
Volcano, RIP, the Volcano, brought back a lot of nostalgic Volcano memories. And you know how much I love Volcano.
True. True.
So, number one, Hagrids. I don't need to say anymore. The incredible theming, incredible launch, incredible like you wait a long amount of time. However, the track itself is I mean, it's a 5-6 minute roller coaster. Like it's unbelievable. The fact that you're holding handlebars and actually feel like you're riding on a motorcycle, just perfect. Perfect execution, just well done all
Yep.
around.
If we're going to ask for my rankings here, I'm going to go with third would be
We
Fast
doing
and
top or
Furious.
bottom? Yeah, we're
We're
doing
doing
bottom first. Okay.
this. We're doing the bottom. We didn't do Storm Force Acceleratron. I would actually put that at third because I don't like to spin. And so Fast and the Furious, that is it. It stays out of the bottom three. Um, Kang and Kodos is number two. And again, not I'm not the right demographic for that ride. And that one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, probably the same thing.
Hey, big
Um,
people matter. Okay, big people matter.
this is true.
Not
But
on
yeah,
Kane Kodos, but big people matter. Okay.
that's right. And yeah, I think that would move Jimmy Fallon to the my least favorite attraction at Universal Orlando. I again, when the best part of the ride is the safety video, it's you got issues. But my three favorites, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Men in Black, so that is my third favorite ride. I love that ride so much. I could rewrite it all day. I hate we didn't get to do the immigration room tour. We just never time it correctly when we were in line. Um, and then two would be Hagrid's, and number one would be Velocicoaster because, as I said earlier, everything that John wrote in his love letter to Velocicoaster on Coaster 101 is true. So shout out to the entire team who put that together. You know,
Not to mention, it was your what 277 coaster credit,
277. Yeah.
and
So
you put it number two of your all time favorite roller coasters.
this is true. So I do have Fury at 1, Velocicoaster at 2, and it was the night ride, the front row night ride on the train with the blue glowing lights that pushed that ride over anything else I'd ever ridden up until that point. So
Oh yeah,
shout out.
everybody needs to get real excited for the photographs you took
Yeah,
to go up.
they're on our Facebook page now, so go check that out. But we will also we'll have them in an article on Coaster101 once I get around to writing it. But JT, I really before we wrap this up, I want to you did touch on it a little bit. My 278th roller coaster credit was on Sunday before we left town, and I rode Icebreaker. And before we talk about what you did, there are signs out in front of this ride that says, "Hey, if you have loose items like cell phones, wallets, keys, glasses, chapstick, whatever, put it in a locker. Here's the locker. Andrew's stuff, Andrew's wallet, Andrew's bag, Andrew's phone, all went in the locker because I know how to read signs, and I know, for my personal sake, the more stuff I can get out of my pockets, the better chance I have at fitting on a roller coaster. But you decided the rules were not going to be followed by you
Yeah, I was gonna be a
that
little
day.
rebellious, a little rebellious here and there. I
Yeah.
worked hard. I worked hard just like you did. Lost a little bit of weight, so the pockets were a little bit loose. Okay, they're a little loosey goosey.
So we ride this, and Velocicoaster, or not Velocicoaster, Icebreaker rather, starts with a backwards launch. You go up that vertical spike. You go forward through the launch track. You go up the top hat. You do the same thing in reverse. You go up the spike again, and I think I have the directions wrong. Anyway, you pass through this launch 3 times. 1, 2, 3, go over the top hat. And then you got, a lot of forces and airtime on the back half of the ride over there by Bayside Stadium. And underneath this ride, there's some stone. There's just white.
Very
I don't
thick
know.
white pea gravel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's substantial. It's not like your typical like gravel. It's rocks.
Oh yeah,
And and so we as we're going, you hear the sound of something hitting the rocks.
oh yeah,
And
very noticeable, very audible, to where the
it's a
people in the row ahead of us was like, "What is that? What was that?"
what was that? And so I looked at JT and I said, "What was that?" And JT does the feels his left pocket, feels his right pocket.
Oh, there was no It was a. I have a look of disdain on my face because when you said, "What was that?" my response was immediately, "That was my cell phone."
So we we got extremely lucky. Uh, the phone was gone. Phone. We will post a photo in the show notes of what happened to the phone. We were able to track the phone using Find My iPhone. The phone was still operational. The screen was
Not.
beyond repair. I mean, the screen was beyond repair, but the phone was still on, so you could still ping a signal off of it. And JT, you got. Unfortunately, they were setting up for REO Speedwagon for um, their Seven Seas Food Festival, and so we couldn't get back there to the Bayside Stadium. The area was kind of closed off, and fortunately, you found somebody who took pity on your dumb idiot self, and you took my phone. You went back there. You were able to track the phone down, and
Yeah.
fortunately for
So
you, you didn't violate any lockout areas. It was only it was a foot inside the graded fence,
it
and
was
which
it was reachable. Yeah. So asked the ride operator kind of what my options were. Mind you, I had to drive home the next day, so it's like I couldn't not have a phone, so I couldn't navigate. Um, so asked the ride operator what my options were. He said, we can't. we can't get the phone until the end of the day, 8 p.m. I said it's not in a restricted area. Like it's pinging in an area that's like close to this access road that we have. Like you can see it on Apple Maps essentially, like where it's pinging, where it is, and it's not in the restricted area. So it was in an employees only area in the backside of the park. However, it was not in a restricted, I'm in danger, hop the fence, break laws type thing. So I kind of hung out by this employee entrance and, spoke to a couple people. Some were, less kind than others. And I came across a gentleman. His name is Will. And extremely, extremely helpful. Could not be more grateful for him. Told him kind of what was going on, showed it where the phone was pinging, and he essentially said, I'll give you 5 minutes. And he walked me back to the employees only area, and lo and behold, there it was, literally a hand's length inside of the fence. Like I didn't have to hop the fence or anything like that. It was right there, and I just had to reach in and grab it. So yeah, put your phone in a locker. Boo icebreaker, but put your phone in a locker.
This has been a PSA from your friends at Coaster101.com to not film on rides, don't take your loose articles, and put your stuff in a locker. Because otherwise, you have to leave the park in the middle of the day and buy a new phone at the AT&T store. So, anyway.
Hey, for the Orlando listeners down there, I had a delicious lunch. So it was, I believe it was called the Whiskey Gourmet Burgers. So shout out to Whiskey Gourmet Burgers. This isn't a sponsored plug for them, but also, shout out Shane. Shout out Shane for being a trooper and putting up with my disappointed self the first time we ever met.
This is true. Yeah, we're going to have Shane on, I believe, next week's show if we can kind of get his schedule and my schedule. And we're going to talk more about the Seven Seas Food Festival. We're going to talk about our trip to SeaWorld and how JT was a whiny, mopey human being.
Hey, I wasn't whiny. I was mopey, but I wasn't whiny.
It's debatable. Anyway, JT, before we wrap this up, I want to ask you, just like I ask all of our guests, you have anything you want to plug? You want to plug your Twitter, your TikTok, or anything like that?
I'd like to shout out Tam Solosin for keeping my kidney from spasming with kidney stones. Also, would like to shout out water. Water is good for the soul. And yeah, still fighting the kidney stone. It's a biggin. Also, one thing that we didn't discuss that I want to shout out, E.T. Thank you for keeping old school theme park nostalgia alive. There's no screens on that ride. None. All animatronics. And we love that.
We do. Even though when the ride breaks down, they say even though the bikes are flying, one of the bicycles has a flat tire, and we will need to fix that before.
Yeah, they need to fix that part. That's not great. At least I didn't lose my phone on that ride. Can you imagine looking in a bush for my phone?
A fake bush? Yeah,
bush.
That would be gone forever. And but the former sponsor of that ride, AT&T, would really thank you for your service.
It would smell terrific, though.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if you're not going to plug your Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, I'm sure you can find those if you follow me on social media.
Yeah, let me plug my TikTok. That would be fantastic. Family show. Don't plug my TikTok.
Fair enough. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. Shout out to JT for joining me. But we talked a couple of times. Go check us out on the World Wide Web at coaster101.com. Also, anywhere you can consume social media, we're probably there at Coaster101. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have a family-friendly TikTok, so that's a good thing.
But I might actually listen to this episode.
Hey, we've got a new listener this week, which is great. But the way we keep those new listeners coming in is by more 5-star ratings and reviews on iTunes and Spotify. We love reading the reviews. We love seeing the 5-star ratings. We're doing pretty well. Shout out to whoever gave us a 4-star review on Spotify. You're not my best friend right now, but other than that, we're pretty much 5 stars across the board, which is always a good thing. But a further shout out to Justin Mabry of JMMD Entertainment for our theme music. And we will talk to you again soon. See ya. So Andrew and JT checking in. We just got off the Jurassic World Velocicoaster. And when I say, holy smokes, this ride is amazing, it lives up to every bit of the hype. And the month of working out was so freaking worth it. And I fit, didn't have any issues. It was great. JT, what'd you think?
Yeah, airtime was insane. I felt numerous times I was going to get thrown out of my seat, which, you got to love on a coaster like this. Also, give it up in the comments for this guy for fitting on the ride and losing all that weight.
Yeah, so we're going to go ride this again. But yeah, Jurassic World Velocicoaster, 10 out of 10. Here we go.